Well, let's find out what Labour have to say about that and many other things this morning in the form of Jim McMahon with us now. Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Nurses might be struggling, but they're not having any more money.
Well, I just think this shows the government is out of touch with public opinion and the government haven't delivered on their promise to respect those frontline workers who kept the nation going during COVID, you know, working in very long hours, working in very difficult circumstances. And all they're asking for now, a point at which they're struggling to make ends meet. And we've all seen the price of food go up, the energy bills have gone up, mortgage payments are going up nearly every month at the moment. And, you know, people genuinely are struggling. And for the government not to hear that, just from a human point of view, I think just shows that they're tone deaf to public opinion.
You're here to talk about the National Farmers Union. They're holding a conference today, aren't they? And so Keir Starmer's going to tell them why Labour is the party of farmers. I always thought it was the Tories.
Well, I think for a long time they were considered to be the party of our counties and our shires and of the farming community. Yeah. And I've got to tell you, over the last 13 years, they have completely demolished that reputation with the way that they treated farmers, the way that they've dealt with our food security. Where, you know, on one hand, you've got farmers who feel so frustrated that they haven't got government support. And if you're a consumer, you're going into the supermarket and seeing that shelves are empty. Why? Because the government are not on the side of farmers, they're not on the side of food security. And as a result, you know, in the end, consumers are paying the price.
I thought the shelves were empty because of bad weather in Morocco.
But we do grow produce here, but it's a matter of fact that we're not growing tomatoes here, for instance, because the cost of energy in the greenhouses is so high that they've just been turned off. That is a contributing factor to why there are gaps on the supermarket shelves. You know, the reason why you can't buy eggs on Pancake Day in many supermarkets is because of avian flu. And the government could have responded much quicker to that, and farmers feel very frustrated in the way that they've been treated. But the reason why Keir's going to Birmingham today, and I'll be going shortly, is to thank farmers for keeping the nation fed in very difficult circumstances, and also to say that they will get a government on their side under a Labour government with a clear plan to make sure that we back them up, but also that we use the public pound to buy more, sell more British produce.
And would you row back on trade deals with countries like Australia and New Zealand?
It's certainly about making sure that British interests are protected in those deals. And all the visits I do around the country to farmers say that people feel really frustrated. You know, of course, we want to maintain really high levels of animal welfare standards, of environmental standards. We want to be good custodians of the natural environment and wildlife. But on the other hand, the government are striking deals to lesser standards to other countries that allow food to be brought in at a lower cost, undercutting farmers and producers here. We don't think that's fair. We think there should be a level playing field, and that's what farmers are asking for. And I think the government will hear that in Birmingham this week.
So are you going to rip up the deals with the Aussies and the Kiwis?
It's not about ripping up trade deals. It's about saying that they certainly need to be revisited to make sure that they act in our national interest and they act in our food security interest. It's no good saying that you are the government on the side of food security if we're not going to have a vibrant farming and food sector. If they feel undercut, if they can't make ends meet, that will, of course, have an impact on our food security.
So basically, you're going to look again at both of those deals?
Well, we've been very critical of those trade deals, in particular the Australian trade deal, in the way that we are allowing potentially the imports of food into the country that are produced to lower animal welfare and nature standards. Of course, that's produced at a lower cost. It undercuts our own British farmers and producers. And that means in practice that farms potentially being pushed to the brink even more, on top of the labour crisis, on top of the energy crisis, on top of the input costs on food and fertiliser. And we think that the government needs to look again.
I was chatting to Peter Hain. I don't know if you saw a previous Northern Ireland Secretary, of course, as you know, when Labour was in power. And he was saying it's an absolute mess what's going on with the Northern Ireland Protocol. But he is hopeful that a deal could be done, but there would have to be some sort of border basically down the Irish Sea.
Well, there has to be a border somewhere if you're changing, moving goods from one customs area to another. That's just a matter of fact. Now, in reality, that customs border could be in Manchester, it could be in Birmingham, it could be in Canary Wharf, it could be in this room, because they're online declarations, they're digital declarations that can be made anywhere.
It's still down the Irish Sea to all intents and purposes then.
But visually, you do need to have a border in place for checks on regulation to make sure that food is being passed safely, that goods that are passing do meet the standards of the customs area they're passing into. That does have to happen somewhere.
So where would Labour want it to be?
And so the question then comes, well, where do you put it? You put it on the island of Ireland and create a physical border with all the symbolism that comes with that. We don't think that's the right approach. Or do you do it in the Irish Sea, which is not as visual and actually can be managed with technology in a far smoother way? in reality, there will have to be compromise, and the government are going to have to negotiate to make sure that that compromise is seen through. And we said to the government, listen, this is so important that we get this right, that if they need Labour support to get it through Parliament, then we'll do that. But Rishi Sunak has got to address the divisions in his own party that could be the stumbling block to this, because the people of Northern Ireland deserve better.
So it is a border in the Irish Sea is what Labour would prefer?
Well, there will be a border anywhere in terms of customs checks and declarations.
No, I know, but I'm asking you, should it be on the island of Ireland or should it be in the Irish Sea? And from what you're saying, it looks as though Labour would support one down the Irish Sea.
Well, let's see the full deal when it comes. At the moment, that seems to be the indication, and we're saying if that strikes the right balance, if that has a compromise that allows us to settle the matter and to get goods moving back and forward in the way that they ought to in the long term, rather than these sticking plaster politics that we see at the moment, then of course we will step up in the national interest and support that.
Just a thought about Kate Forbes before I let you go. She's emerging as one of the front runners for the job as First Minister after Nicola Sturgeon stepped down. She said that she would have voted against gay marriage as a matter of conscience. What do you think?
Well, certainly not my view. I believe Britain is a welcoming and inclusive place, and one that is very open-minded for people to live a decent, fulfilled life in the way that they choose to. I don't think those views reflect the country as a whole.
OK, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.